Hey there. Tonight we're traveling back over 3,000 years, back to 1177 BCE, a time when the world you knew, the only world that had ever existed, was about to crumble into dust. You won't find this story in your history textbooks. They'll tell you about kings and empires, but they won't tell you what it felt like when everything just stopped. Imagine waking up one morning in the greatest civilization humanity had ever built. Bronze gleaming in the sun, trade routes connecting 3 continents, cities with plumbing that wouldn't be matched for another millennium. And then, within a single generation, it's all gone. The cities burned, the trade routes severed, even the ability to write, forgotten. You are a merchant's son in the Hittite Empire. You've lived your entire life in comfort, in certainty. You can read and write. You've never known hunger. You believe your empire will last forever. You're wrong. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and let me take you back to the day everything changed. Drop a comment below telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Let's begin this journey together. You wake to the sound of hammers on bronze. The familiar rhythm has marked every morning of your 16 years. Your father's workshop sits below your sleeping chamber in Hattusa, the Hittite capital, a city of 40,000 souls carved into the Anatolian highlands. The year is 1177 BCE, though you wouldn't call it that. You mark time by the reign of King Suppiluliuma II, 3rd year. You stretch on your wool-stuffed mattress, a luxury most cannot afford. Through the window, dawn light catches the city's limestone walls, turning them golden. Smoke rises from hundreds of cooking fires. The scent of baking bread drifts up from the street below. Your stomach growls. Your mother calls from the courtyard. Breakfast is ready. Barley porridge with honey, fresh figs, goat cheese. You dress in your linen tunic, the fabric Egyptian, traded from merchants who travelled 2 months to bring it here. You tie your leather belt, slip on your sandals. Today, you're supposed to accompany your father to the palace. A delegation from Ugarit has arrived with orders for bronze weapons. War chariots need new fittings. The Hittite army always needs more bronze. You're learning the family trade, learning to calculate copper and tin ratios, learning to read the cuneiform tablets that record every transaction. You have no idea that the world is already ending. In Egypt, Pharaoh Ramesses III is fighting invaders he calls the Sea Peoples, refugees, pirates, warriors from lands that no longer exist. In Mycenaean Greece, palaces are burning. The great cities of the Aegean are being abandoned. But here in Hattusa, the morning feels eternal. You descend the stairs, hungry and young, ready for another ordinary day in the greatest empire on earth. Your father, Huzziya, is already in the courtyard, inspecting clay tablets when you arrive. He's 43, but looks older. Years of working near furnace heat have weathered his face. His hands, scarred from bronze burns, move across the cuneiform characters with practiced ease. He doesn't look up when you sit. The Ugarit order is larger than expected, he says, finally meeting your eyes. 300 spearheads, 50 chariot axles, 200 arrowheads. They're paying in cedarwood and purple dye. You nod, doing the mental calculation. That's at least 2 months of work, even with hired help. Ugarit is a coastal city, wealthy from Mediterranean trade. They wouldn't order this much bronze for routine needs. Something is happening. War, you ask? Always war somewhere, your father replies. But there's tension in his voice. Eat. We leave within the hour. Your mother serves the porridge. Her name is Araniti, after the Hittite sun goddess. She's silent this morning, worried about something. You've learned to read her moods. She places extra honey in your bowl, a small kindness that feels like a warning. Your younger sister, Puduhepa, 10 years old, chatters about the festival next month. She wants a new dress, blue like the sky. She wants to see the king's procession. She's too young to sense the adult's unease. You envy her innocence. You eat quickly. The porridge is thick and sweet. The figs are perfectly ripe. The cheese is tangy. You don't know that 20 years from now, these simple foods will be memories of impossible luxury, of a world that no longer exists. Your father stands. Time, he says simply. You follow him toward the workshop to gather the tablets he'll present to the palace officials. The day's heat is already building. By noon, the limestone streets will be scorching. The walk to the palace takes you through Hattusa's upper city. These streets you know like your own heartbeat. Past the temple of the storm god, its walls decorated with relief carvings of bulls and lightning. Past the house of Ziti, the physician, who saved your sister from fever 2 winters ago. Past the barracks where soldiers drill in the courtyard, their bronze-tipped spears flashing in the sunlight. The city feels normal. Children play in the streets. Merchants display pottery, textiles, grain. A baker hawks fresh bread. 2 women gossip near a fountain, filling clay jars with water. An old man leads a donkey loaded with firewood. Life continuing as it always has, as it always will. But your father walks faster than usual. His jaw is tight. You pass through the lion gate, where 2 massive stone lions guard the entrance to the palace complex. The soldiers there know your father, wave him through. You've made this walk dozens of times, but today it feels different. There are more soldiers than usual. Their faces are tense. Inside the palace walls, the administrative quarter bustles with scribes, officials, messengers. Clay tablets are everywhere. Records of grain storage, tax collections, military deployments, diplomatic correspondence. The Hittite Empire runs on information, all of it pressed into wet clay and baked hard. A scribe directs you to a waiting area. Other merchants and craftsmen sit on stone benches, waiting their turn to meet with palace officials. A silversmith from the lower city, a textile merchant from Carchemish, a grain trader who looks like he hasn't slept in days. Your father exchanges greetings but doesn't sit. He paces. You've never seen him pace before. "Father?" you ask quietly. He stops, looks at you. For a moment, you see something in his eyes you've never seen before. Fear. Then he smiles and it's gone. "Just thinking about the work ahead," he says, but you know he's lying. A palace official finally calls your father's name. Karunta, the chief of royal works, a man with grey in his beard and authority in his voice. You follow your father into a chamber lined with shelves, holding thousands of clay tablets. The accumulated knowledge of generations. Karunta doesn't waste time with pleasantries. "The Ugarit delegation arrived 3 days ago," he says, unrolling a tablet. "They need the bronze urgently. They're offering double the usual payment." Double. Your father's eyes widen slightly. That's extraordinary. Suspicious. "Why the urgency?" your father asks. Karunta hesitates. Then, perhaps because your father is trustworthy, perhaps because the truth will spread anyway, he speaks quietly. Ugarit is preparing for siege. Pirates have been raiding coastal cities, entire fleets of them. They've already destroyed Tarhuntassa. They've burned settlements in Cyprus. Ugarit fears they're next. The room feels colder suddenly. Tarhuntassa was a Hittite vassal city, your empire's southern territories. Gone. "When did Tarhuntassa fall?" your father asks. 2 months ago, the king sent armies south, but... Karunta shakes his head. These aren't ordinary raiders. They move too fast. They strike and vanish. And there are thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. You feel your breath catch. Tens of thousands. That's not a raiding party. That's a migration. A desperate flight of people with nowhere left to go. Where are they from? You ask before you can stop yourself. Karunta looks at you, seems to debate whether to answer. Everywhere, he finally says. The Aegean, the western coasts, islands that no longer send tribute, cities that no longer answer messages. It's like the world is unraveling. Your father is quiet for a long moment. Then, practical as always, he asks about copper supplies, about tin availability, about deadlines. The work must continue. Empires need bronze. Civilization needs bronze. But as you leave the palace an hour later, contracts agreed, you see soldiers drilling in the courtyard. More than before. Many more. The hammers still ring in your father's workshop. The bread still smells sweet. But something fundamental has shifted. You just don't understand how much. Not yet. The next weeks blur into frantic work. Your father hires every available craftsman in the lower city. The workshop runs day and night. The furnaces never cool. The smell of molten bronze, hot metal, and charcoal smoke fills your world. You learn to operate the bellows that keep the fires burning at temperatures high enough to melt copper and tin. Your arms ache from the constant pumping. Your face burns from the heat. Sparks scar your forearms. Your hands blister, then callous, then blister again. 300 spearheads. Each one must be perfect. Too soft and it bends in combat. Too brittle and it shatters on impact. The ratio must be exact. 9 parts copper to 1 part tin. Your father checks each batch personally, breaking test pieces to examine the grain structure, the color, the sound it makes when struck. The tin is the problem. It always is. Tin comes from distant lands, from mines in the Far East, beyond lands you've never seen, carried along trade routes that span continents. For 3 generations, those routes have been reliable. The tin has always come. But now, caravans are delayed. Some don't arrive at all. The price has tripled in a month. Your father pays it anyway. The Ugarit contract is too valuable to lose. You work beside men you've known since childhood. Zui, the mold maker, whose hands can shape clay into perfect forms. Arnuwanda, who operates the second furnace, a giant who can lift crucibles of molten bronze that would break lesser men. Hatu Sili, the polisher, who transforms rough castings into gleaming weapons. They joke while they work, these men. They complain about the heat, about their wives, about the price of beer. Normal complaints. Normal men. But you notice they all wear protective amulets now. Little clay figurines of gods. Charms against evil, against the unknown. At night, you collapse into sleep so deep that dreams don't find you. Your muscles scream, your hands throb, but the work continues. Because bronze is civilization. Bronze is order. Bronze is the difference between a soldier and a corpse. 7 weeks into the Ugarit contract, the first refugees arrive at Hattusa's gates. You see them from the workshop courtyard, a ragged column of perhaps 200 people. They're from the Western Territories, from villages you've never heard of. They carry everything they own on their backs and in crude carts. Work stops. Everyone watches as the palace guards process them at the gates. The refugees look hollow-eyed, dusty, desperate. Children cry. An old woman collapses and doesn't get up. A guard helps her to the shade, brings water. Raiders, someone in the workshop mutters. They're running from raiders. But that night, in the tavern where workers gather after dark shifts, you hear a different story. A Syrian merchant who trades in textiles tells it over beer. He says entire cities along the coast are emptying, not because of raids, but because the trade networks have collapsed. Ships aren't coming anymore. Grain shipments have stopped. Famine is spreading. The Mycenaeans have abandoned their palaces, he says, his voice low. Linear B tablets aren't being written anymore. Their whole civilization is just walking away, into the hills, into the mountains, becoming shepherds again. An older smith laughs nervously. That's impossible. The Mycenaeans have been trading with us for 300 years. Yes, the merchant says quietly. They have, until this year. You walk home late that night through dark streets. The city watch has doubled. Soldiers patrol in pairs, torches burning every 50 paces. The city feels tense, alert, like an animal sensing a predator it can't yet see. At home, your mother is still awake. She's been preserving food, drying figs, smoking fish, storing grain in sealed jars. Your family has never needed to stockpile food before. The markets have always been full. Mother, you ask, what are you doing? She looks at you with eyes that have cried recently. Being careful, she says. Just being careful. You lie awake that night, listening to the city's sounds. Dogs barking, a baby crying. Somewhere, a woman singing a lullaby. Normal sounds. But they feel fragile now, precious, like they might shatter at any moment. The Ugarit delegation arrives to collect their bronze. They come with armed guards, unusual for a simple trade mission. The leader is named Yakaru, a merchant prince with connections to Ugarit's royal family. He inspects every spearhead, every chariot axle, every arrowhead with meticulous care. Your father presents the finished work with pride. 300 perfect spearheads gleam in neat rows. The chariot axles are balanced and true. The arrowheads could pierce bronze armor at 100 paces. It's masterwork, the finest your father has ever produced. Yakaru nods approval. He counts out the payment. Cedarwood logs from Lebanon, each one worth a fortune, and jars of purple dye from murex shells, rarer than silver. But his hands shake as he handles the contracts. His eyes are haunted. Is Ugarit still standing? Your father asks quietly, away from the others. Yakaru looks at him for a long moment. When I left 6 weeks ago, yes. Whether it still stands today, he shakes his head. We've had no ships arrive for 40 days. No messages from Cyprus, from Egypt, from anywhere. It's like the sea itself has become hostile. The sea peoples? That's what the Egyptians call them. We call them the drowned nations. People from lands that no longer exist, whose cities are ash, whose kings are corpses. They travel in fleets of 100 ships or more. They don't raid, they migrate. They're looking for new homes because their old homes are gone. Gone where, you ask? Yakaru's laugh is bitter. If we knew that, perhaps we could stop it. But we don't know. Maybe drought, maybe famine, maybe earthquakes, maybe all of it at once. The old world is dying, boy, and we're all scrambling to survive in the new one. The delegation loads the bronze onto wagons that same afternoon. They leave immediately, traveling with military escort toward the coast. You watch them disappear down the road, carrying weapons that will probably be used within weeks, maybe days. That night, your father doesn't eat dinner. He sits in his workshop, staring at the remaining tin ingots. There are fewer than before, much fewer. How much tin do we have left, you ask? Enough for one more large order, he says. Maybe 2 months of regular work. After that, he doesn't finish. You understand. After that, the Bronze Age ends. At least for you. Summer arrives with drought. The spring rains that usually fill Hattusa's cisterns never came. By midsummer, the water level in the public fountains has dropped by half. The palace issues rationing orders. Each household receives allocation tokens for grain, oil, water. Your sister, Puduhepa, doesn't understand why she can't have her blue dress, why the festival was cancelled, why mother serves smaller portions at dinner. She cries one night, hungry, and your mother holds her and lies, saying everything will be fine. You know it won't be fine. You can do math. You've been taught to calculate, to measure, to understand logistics. The city has 40,000 people. The surrounding farmland, in a good year, can feed maybe 30,000. The granaries have reserves, but those won't last past winter if the autumn harvest fails too. Refugees keep arriving, hundreds now, then thousands. They set up camps outside the city walls, makeshift shelters of cloth and reeds. The palace sends soldiers to maintain order, to distribute food, to prevent violence. But resources are finite. Generosity has limits. Your father receives a contract from the palace itself. Not for weapons this time, for tools. Ploughs, sickles, axes. The palace is commandeering every craftsman to produce agricultural implements. There's a frantic effort to expand the cultivated lands, to plant drought-resistant crops, to prepare for the worst. The tin supplies run lower. Your father mixes more lead into the bronze now, makes it cheaper, softer, less ideal. But tools don't need to be perfect. They just need to exist. You work alongside him in oppressive heat. The furnace is unbearable in summer. You drink water constantly and still feel parched. Sweat stings your eyes. Your hands never fully heal anymore. The blisters open and close and open again. One afternoon, a messenger arrives from the palace. He carries a clay tablet sealed with the royal seal. Your father breaks it open, reads, and his face goes pale. What is it, you ask? The grain harvest in the southern provinces, he says. It failed, completely. That night, for the first time in your life, you go to bed hungry. Your mother serves you half portions, saying she's not hungry herself. You know she's lying. You eat anyway, because refusing would hurt her more. You lie in darkness, listening to your stomach growl, and wonder how long the city can hold. How long before hunger turns people desperate? How long before the civilization you've always known begins to crack? Autumn brings no relief. The harvest is half what it should be, maybe less. The palace officials conduct a census, counting every mouth to feed, calculating how long the granaries will last. The answer, though not officially announced, spreads through the city anyway. 4 months. Maybe 5 if people accept starvation rations. Your father's workshop receives no new contracts. There's no tin left to buy. The trade caravans have stopped coming entirely. The roads are unsafe. Bandits, desperate refugees, collapsed governments unable to maintain order. The entire supply network that connected 3 continents for 1,000 years has simply stopped. You spend your days now in the public works crews. All able-bodied people, regardless of class, are assigned labor. You dig irrigation channels that will probably never carry water. You repair walls. You carry stones. Your hands, which learn to craft bronze, now only know rough labor. In the camps outside the walls, disease spreads. Dysentery first, from contaminated water. Then fever, from crowding and poor sanitation. The palace sends physicians, but there aren't enough. Bodies are burned in mass pyres. The smoke hangs over the city like a shroud. Your sister grows sick in mid-autumn. It starts with fever, then weakness. Then she can't hold down food. Your mother sits with her day and night, pressing cool cloths to her forehead, whispering prayers to Araniti, the sun goddess, to Lelwani, the goddess of the underworld, to any deity who might listen. The physician, old Ziti, comes to examine her. He's exhausted. He's been tending the sick for weeks without rest. He gives your mother herbs, instructions, sympathy, but no promises. Her fate is with the gods now, he says gently. You watch your sister's small body shake with fever. She's delirious, calling for water constantly, speaking nonsense. She asks for her blue dress again, the one she never got, and starts crying when your mother says they can't afford it now. You would give anything, everything for that dress, for medicine, for the world to go back to the way it was 3 months ago, when you were just a merchant's son learning a trade, when the future stretched out stable and certain. But that world is gone. You realize it fully now, watching your sister suffer. The Bronze Age is ending, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Your sister survives, barely. She's weak for weeks afterward, unable to stand without help. But she lives when so many others don't. You're grateful to gods you're not sure you believe in anymore. The winter comes early and bitter. Snow in the highlands, freezing rain in the city. The refugees in the camps outside the walls suffer worst. No proper shelter, inadequate clothing, depleted bodies with no resistance to cold. Hundreds die. Maybe thousands. The palace stops counting. The palace also stops feeding them. The decision is brutal but mathematical. There isn't enough food for everyone. The choice is stark. Let some die now so others might survive until spring. The gates close. The camps are sealed off. Soldiers enforce the quarantine. You hear the cries from outside the walls at night. Pleading, cursing, weeping. The sounds of human suffering on a scale you couldn't have imagined 6 months ago. You cover your ears, but you can still hear them. Everyone can. Inside the city, rationing becomes severe. 1 meal a day, mostly barley gruel, sometimes a bit of dried fish, occasionally oil for the lamps. People burn furniture for heat. They burn roof timbers. Anything combustible becomes precious. Your father sits idle now. The workshop is cold, the furnace is dark. There's no bronze to work, no contracts to fulfill, no future in craftsmanship. He ages 10 years in 1 winter. His hair goes grey. His hands, those skilled hands that shaped metal with precision, shake with palsy from malnutrition. Your mother sells her jewelry, then her good clothes, then the furniture. Anything valuable goes to the black market that operates in the lower city, trading luxuries for food. A gold bracelet for 2 weeks of bread, a fine rug for a sack of lentils. You learn what hunger really means. Not the single night of reduced portions from autumn. Real hunger, the kind that hollows you out, makes you weak, makes thinking difficult. You fantasize about food constantly. Remember meals from before. Dream of bread and honey and meat. People start eating things that aren't food. Leather boiled soft. Grass. Tree bark. Dogs and cats disappear from the streets. You don't want to think about why. The law breaks down in sections of the city. Theft is common. Violence too. The city watch patrols constantly, but they're hungry too. Weak too. Human too. Some of them accept bribes. Some look the other way. Some join the criminals. You survive by becoming someone you don't recognize. You steal food. Not much. You're not a skilled thief. A handful of grain from a warehouse when the guard turns away. A dried fish from a market stall. Once, a small loaf of bread from a baker who's too weak to chase you. You hate yourself for it. But you bring it home, and your sister eats, and you tell yourself that morality is a luxury for times of plenty. Others do worse, much worse. You hear stories. A grain warehouse raided, the guards killed, a family murdered for their food stores. Cannibalism, whispered about but never confirmed, never quite believable but never quite deniable. The palace tries to maintain order. public executions for looters, soldiers stationed at every granary. But the palace itself is starving. The royal family reduces their own rations to show solidarity. Or maybe they're just out of food too. Even kings must eat. In midwinter, a messenger arrives from the south, or what used to be the south. He's half dead from the journey, frostbitten, starved. He carries messages from cities that no longer exist. Tarhuntassa, burned. Alalak, abandoned. Carchemish, surrounded by enemies expecting to fall within weeks. The messenger speaks to the king's council. You're not there, but the news spreads anyway. The Hittite Empire is dying. The southern territories are gone. The western territories are in rebellion or chaos. Egyptian communication has ceased. The Assyrians are retreating behind their walls, letting the world burn. Civilization is fragmenting into tribes, into villages, into families fighting for survival. The great kingdoms that ruled for centuries are becoming memory. The writing systems are being forgotten. The palatial economies are collapsing. The Bronze Age is ending, not with conquest, but with disconnection. Your father tries to explain it to you one night. It's the tin, he says. Without tin, there's no bronze. Without bronze, there's no effective warfare. Without effective warfare, there's no ability to maintain large states. Without large states, there's no ability to maintain the trade routes. Without the trade routes, there's no tin. It's all circular. It all collapses together. You understand. You've done the math. But understanding doesn't help. Understanding doesn't fill your stomach. Understanding doesn't bring back the world that was. You sleep fitfully, dreaming of food, of normal days, of your sister laughing, of your father working bronze, of a time before everything fell apart. When you wake, it's to screaming in the streets. The screaming is an attack, not outsiders, insiders. People from the lower city, thousands of them, storming the granaries. They're dying, they have nothing left to lose, and they want food. The City Watch tries to stop them, tries and fails. There are too many. You hear fighting, bronze weapons against bronze weapons, against stones, against bare hands. The sound of people killing each other for grain. You bar your door and huddle with your family in the darkness, listening to the city tear itself apart. By dawn, it's over. The granaries are broken open, the grain taken. The palace has lost control. Several council members are dead, killed in the riots. The king, you haven't seen the king in months. Some say he's already fled. Some say he's dead. No one knows for certain. The grain from the looted granaries feeds the lower city for 3 days. 3 days of full bellies. Then it's gone, consumed in a frenzy, and the hunger returns worse than before, because now there truly is nothing left. The city begins to empty. People leave in groups, families, entire neighborhoods. They're going to try their luck in the countryside. Maybe find a village that still has food. Maybe forage. Maybe die trying. But staying means certain death, so they go. Your father can barely walk now. He weighs maybe half what he did in autumn. He can't make the journey. Your mother refuses to leave him. Your sister is still too weak from her illness. But you're young. You're strong enough. You might survive if you leave. Go, your father says one morning. Take what you can carry. Head north, away from the coast, away from the invaders. Find somewhere safe. I won't leave you, you say. You will, your mother says. She's made a pack for you. Food, their rations for the next week. A knife, a cloak, everything you need to travel. Everything they have left. You'll go and you'll survive and you'll remember us. Remember all of this. You cry. You're 16 years old and you cry like a child. Because your parents are giving you their only chance at life, are choosing death so you might live. I'll come back, you promise. When I find somewhere safe, I'll come back for you. They smile at the lie, let you believe it. They know you won't come back, can't come back, that this is goodbye. You leave at midday, joining a stream of refugees heading north out of Hattusa. Hundreds of people, all carrying what they can, all hoping for survival. You don't look back. If you look back, you'll return. And returning means dying with them instead of living without them. The road north is packed. Families, craftsmen, merchants, nobles who rode in carriages 6 months ago now walk in rags. A former palace official begs for water. A priestess of the storm god pulls a handcart. The social order has inverted, then collapsed entirely. You're all just refugees now. You walk for hours. The pack on your back grows heavy. Your feet hurt. But you're in better condition than most. Younger, stronger from months of manual labor. You pass people who can't continue. An old man sitting by the roadside, too tired to go on. A woman holding a dead child, rocking it gently, unable to accept reality. You keep walking. Stopping won't help them. Stopping will only make you one of them. By evening, you're far enough from the city to see it in perspective. Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire. 40,000 people 6 months ago, maybe 10,000 now. From here, it looks small, mortal. The limestone walls that seemed eternal are just stone. The palaces are just buildings. The empire is just an idea, and ideas die when the people who hold them die. You make camp with a group of others. They share a fire, share food sparingly. A blacksmith and his wife, 2 farmers, a young woman traveling alone, dangerous for her, but she has a knife and knows how to use it. They talk about where they're going, north to the mountain villages, east toward Assyria, west to... No one knows what's west anymore. The whole Aegean has gone dark. They talk about what happened, trying to understand. It was the drought, the blacksmith says. It was the sea peoples, one farmer counters. It was the god's anger, the blacksmith's wife whispers. You say nothing. You think about your father's explanation. The tin, the bronze, the trade routes, the system. But that's too complex, too circular. People need simple explanations, need villains to blame, or gods, or bad luck. They need it to make sense, even when it doesn't. That night, you sleep under stars that have watched empires rise and fall for thousands of years. They don't care about Hittites or Egyptians or Mycenaeans. They'll shine long after everyone you've ever known is dust. It's not comforting, but it's true. The second day, bandits attack your group at a river crossing. They want food, supplies, anything valuable. They're refugees too. You can tell from their clothes, their desperation. But they've chosen violence over solidarity, chosen to prey on others rather than starve together. The blacksmith fights. He has a bronze axe, knows how to use it. He kills 2 of them before a spear takes him in the chest. His wife screams. The young woman with the knife fights too, cuts one bandit badly. You freeze. You've never fought before, never killed. The violence is fast, brutal, incomprehensible. It's over in moments. The bandits take what they want and leave. The blacksmith is dying, blood spreading across his tunic. His wife holds him, crying, and you watch a good man bleed out on a riverbank for a bag of dried lentils. One of the farmers knows some medicine. He tries to help, but it's hopeless. The spear went too deep. The blacksmith knows it. He whispers something to his wife, too quiet for you to hear. Then he's gone. You help bury him. Shallow grave, no marker, no ceremony. There's no time, no priest, no proper rites. Just a hole and stones and moving on. The blacksmith's wife comes with you. She has nowhere else to go. She doesn't speak much now. Trauma has locked something away inside her. You walk for days. The landscape changes, lowlands to foothills to mountains. You leave behind the farmland that fed the empire, entering territory that was always marginal, always poor. But marginal means it wasn't dependent on trade networks. Poor means it might have survived. You pass burned villages, empty ones, some with corpses, some without. You learn to read the signs of violence. Fresh blood means danger nearby. Old blood means move quickly but carefully. No blood doesn't mean safety, just different dangers. Water becomes the constant problem. Rivers are often contaminated, bodies upstream, disease, waste. You learn to find springs, to read the land. The farmers in your group teach you. They're surviving better than the city folk. They know how to forage, how to recognize edible plants, how to set snares for rabbits. You're becoming someone different, harder. The boy who worked bronze in Hattusa is gone. You're a refugee now. You're whatever you need to be to survive. 2 weeks after leaving Hattusa, you reach a mountain village. It's small, maybe 50 people. Stone houses with thatch roofs, terraced fields carved into the hillside. They're subsistence farmers. They've never had much, never depended on anything but their own labor and the land. They're suspicious of refugees, understandably. Too many mouths to feed means everyone starves. The village elder, a woman named Kuwana, who must be 70 years old but works a plough like she's 30, meets your group at the edge of the settlement. "We have nothing to share," she says flatly. "Move on." One of the farmers in your group, a man named Masana, steps forward. "We can work," he says. "We're not beggars. We'll earn our keep." Kuwana considers this. She's calculating, you can see it. Extra hands for the harvest. But extra mouths through winter. The math is cruel, but necessary. "3 of you can stay," she finally says. "The strongest workers. The rest move on tomorrow." Your group is 7 people now. You, the blacksmith's wife, Masana, the other farmer, the young woman with the knife, and 2 children who lost their parents somewhere along the road. The decision is impossible. Who lives? Who walks into the wilderness? Masana volunteers to leave. He's older, he says. The children should stay. The blacksmith's wife immediately says she'll go with him. Life without her husband isn't life anyway. The young woman agrees to leave too. She survived this far. She'll survive further. That leaves you, the other farmer, and the 2 children. You could volunteer to leave. Probably should. You're young enough to keep traveling, strong enough to make it. But you're so tired. Tired of walking, tired of hunger, tired of death. And the children, they're 8 and 6, a brother and sister. They need someone. You stay. You tell yourself it's for the children. Maybe it is. Maybe it's cowardice. Maybe survival has no moral weight, just random chance and selfish choices. Masana, the blacksmith's wife, and the young woman leave the next morning. You watch them go, adding 3 more to the endless stream of displaced humanity. You'll never know if they survived, never know where they ended up, or if they ended up anywhere at all. You turn to your new life, in a village you don't know, with people who don't trust you, in a world that's forgotten what you used to be. The village accepts you grudgingly. You're assigned to work the terraces with the other farmer, a man named Piha. The children go to a family that lost their own children to fever last year. You visit them when you can, but mostly you work. The work is brutal. Hittite agriculture, even at its most basic, had tools. Bronze ploughs, sickles, organization. Here, you dig with wooden implements, plant by hand, water by carrying jars up steep hillsides. Your hands, which learned bronze and survived starvation, now grow new calluses from peasant labor. You learn their rhythms. Wake at dawn, work until noon, rest during the hottest hours, work until sunset, eat communal dinners in the village square, everyone contributing what they can, sleep in a shared house with 5 other workers, rise and repeat. It's hard, it's humble, it's nothing like your old life, but it's stable. No one is dying here. No one is stealing. The violence and chaos of Hattusa seem like a nightmare from another world. Weeks pass, then months. You stop thinking about your family every day. The pain becomes something you carry rather than something that crushes you. You learn to function around the grief. The children adapt faster than you do. Children always do. The boy, Zilipuri, starts smiling again. The girl, Tarawani, laughs sometimes. They're being raised as villagers now, learning to speak the local dialect, forgetting their city origins. One evening, Kuwana sits beside you at dinner. You work hard, she says. It's the first time she's spoken to you directly since you arrived. Thank you, you reply. You're welcome to stay, permanently, if you want. You look around the village. Simple houses, simple lives. No palaces, no bronze, no writing, no trade networks. Just people surviving by their own labor, independent of systems that can collapse. What about the empire, you ask? The Hittites? Does anyone here even know what's happening? Kuwana laughs, short and bitter. We know empires fall. We've seen it before. We'll see it again. The powerful always think their world will last forever. The rest of us know better. She's right, you realize. This village will outlast Hattusa, will outlast the memory of Hittites, will endure because it never depended on anything but itself. You're witnessing the transition. Bronze. Winter in the mountains is harsh but manageable. The village has stores, dried grain, preserved vegetables, salted meat from the few goats and sheep they keep. It's not abundance, but it's enough. You've learned what enough feels like. It's a gift after knowing too little. You're assigned to help maintain the stone walls that terrace the fields. It's work that can be done in cold weather. You stack stones, repair erosion, prepare for spring planting. Piha works beside you, teaching you the craft. Which stones fit where, how to angle them so water drains properly, how to build something that lasts. The old Hittite cities, he says one day, they'll crumble, too complex, too dependent. These walls? He pats the stones. These will be here in 1,000 years, maybe 5,000. Simple endures. You think about Hattusa, the massive limestone walls, the palace, the temple, all of it designed to impress, to dominate, to proclaim eternal power. Probably already ruins, probably already being stripped for building material by whoever's left. You see your first iron knife that winter. A trader shows it off. It's ugly, rough forged, dark metal instead of gleaming bronze. But it works, and that's what matters now. Function over beauty, survival over aesthetics. The trader tells you something else. Writing is disappearing. The palace scribes are dead or scattered. The great libraries of clay tablets are abandoned. Literacy is dying with the empires that needed it. Does that bother you? Piha asks later. You'd mentioned you used to read and write. Yes, you admit. Then, no, maybe, I don't know. What use is writing here? None, he agrees. We remember what matters. The rest is just weight. You realize he's right. Oral tradition. Practical knowledge passed parent to child. That's what survives dark ages. Not written histories, not palace archives, not trade records. Just people remembering what they need to live. You're becoming part of that tradition. Learning to be a villager, a farmer, a survivor. Learning to forget being a merchant's son who once shaped bronze and read cuneiform. Spring arrives late but welcome. The snow melts, revealing winter's damage to the terraces. You spend weeks repairing before planting can begin. The rhythm of agricultural life is different from anything you knew before. It's tied to seasons, weather, the land itself. You can't negotiate with rain or bargain with drought. The village plants the same crops as always: barley, wheat, lentils. But also something new, a different variety of wheat brought by a refugee last autumn. It's hardier, drought-resistant, from somewhere east. The villagers are skeptical but willing to try. Survival requires adaptation. You work alongside Zilipuri now. The boy is 9, old enough to help with planting. He doesn't remember much about Hattusa anymore, doesn't remember his parents clearly. The village is his world now. You feel a strange mixture of relief and sadness about that. Forgetting is survival too. One morning, a group of refugees arrives. 20 people, ragged and desperate. They're from the coast, or what used to be the coast. They tell stories of the sea peoples, not as conquerors, but as settlers. The invaders have stopped invading. They've found empty lands and claimed them. They're becoming the new population, replacing the civilizations they destroyed. They have no writing, one refugee says. No palaces, no kings, just chiefs and warriors. They've gone back to tribalism. Kuwana feeds the refugees one meal, then sends them on. Too many to support. They head higher into the mountains, looking for somewhere to settle. You wonder if they'll find it. Wonder if there's anywhere left that isn't full of people fleeing somewhere else. The planting proceeds. You develop a relationship with the land that you never had with bronze. Bronze was about precision, formulas, control. Farming is about cooperation with forces beyond your control. You plant, you water, you pray to gods you're not sure exist. Then you wait and hope. The other farmer from your original group, the one who stayed, dies that spring. Illness, sudden and quick. Fever, chills, death. The village buries him in the mountain cemetery. No marker except stones in a pattern. 50 years from now, no one will know his name. No one will remember he was a farmer from the lowlands who fled the collapse of the Hittite Empire. You think about that often. How quickly people disappear. How little remains. You used to think bronze was immortal. Weapons and tools lasting generations. But even bronze returns to earth eventually. Everything does. You plant wheat and know you might not live to harvest it. Know that even if you do, you might die before next winter. That's the truth of this new world. No security, no certainty. Just the work and the hope and the endless cycle of seasons. Summer brings traders again, fewer than before the cull. You work for the trader as promised, a week of repairing his wagons, checking wheels, replacing broken parts. The work is familiar. You learned basic carpentry from the same education that taught you bronze. Different materials, same principles. During the work, you talk with him. His name is Hantili, and he's been trading these routes for 15 years. He's seen the whole collapse unfold. Started noticing about 7 years ago, he says, while you're fitting a new wheel spoke. Delays on shipments, caravans not arriving, prices going weird. Then about 5 years ago, the big disruptions. Whole regions stopping trade. Then 3 years ago, the real collapse. Cities burning, governments falling, roads becoming too dangerous. What caused it, you ask? You've heard theories, but he's travelled more than anyone. Everything at once, he says. Drought in multiple regions, crop failures. That pushed populations to migrate. The migrations became invasions. The invasions destroyed trade routes. The destroyed trade routes meant no tin, no bronze. No bronze meant armies couldn't maintain control. Lost control meant more chaos. It all fed on itself. Could anyone have stopped it? Hantili laughs. The kings thought they could. They always think they can. They made treaties, sent armies, tried to hold it together. But you can't treaty with drought. Can't send armies against starvation. The system was too interconnected. When one part failed, it all failed. You think about that while you work. The Bronze Age wasn't destroyed by enemies. It destroyed itself by being too complex, too dependent, too fragile. A house of cards that fell when too many cards were removed at once. What about now, you ask? What comes next? This, Antilli gestures at the village below. Small communities, local production, simple lives. It'll be like this for a long time, maybe centuries, maybe 1,000 years. Eventually, someone will figure out how to build big civilizations again. They'll think they're smarter than the Bronze Age kingdoms. They'll make the same mistakes. You're very cynical. I'm realistic. History doesn't progress, boy. It cycles, up and down, complex and simple. We're in a simple phase now. Your grandchildren might see the beginnings of complexity again, or maybe their grandchildren. The week ends. Antilli leaves, heading east with his caravan. You watch him go, thinking about cycles and history, and the long view of time that makes individual lives seem so small. You return to planting, to simple work, to the cycle of seasons that predates empires and will continue after all empires are dust. PSE, but they haven't vanished entirely. They deal in different goods now. Less luxury, more necessity. Iron tools, salt, seeds. Practical things for a practical age. One trader brings news that stops you cold. He passed through the ruins of Hattusa. The city is abandoned, completely. The walls are intact, the buildings standing, but empty. No people, no movement, just wind through silent streets. Some of the houses still have furniture, the trader says. Food in the storage jars, like people just left, walked away from everything. You think about your parents, your sister. You haven't let yourself think about them in months. Thinking hurts too much, but now you can't stop. Did they make it through the winter? Did they leave? Are they somewhere, alive? You'll never know. That's the hardest truth. In the old world, there were records, messages, ways to track people. Now there's just silence and distance. People disappear into the chaos, and you never learn their fate. The trader has something else. He pulls out a bronze spearhead. Old style, fine work. You recognize it immediately. It's from your father's workshop. One of the Ugarit order pieces, marked with your father's maker's sign. Found it in a burned village 3 days west, the trader says. Thought it might trade well. You hold your father's work in your hands. The weight is familiar, the balance perfect. You remember watching him cast these, test them, polish them. Remember thinking bronze was forever. How much, you ask? The trader names a price. It's high. Bronze is precious now. You have nothing to trade except labor. You offer a week of work on his wagons, repairs and maintenance. He considers, then agrees. You keep the spearhead. You're not sure why. It's useless to you. The village has wooden tools, not weapons. But it's a connection to your past, to your father, to a world that existed. That night, you sit on the hillside above the village, holding the spearhead, watching the sunset. Somewhere out there, your family existed, maybe still exists. The empire they lived in is gone. The city they called home is empty. The life they knew is finished. But you survived. That's something. Maybe it's enough. The harvest that autumn is good. Not abundant, but sufficient. The new drought-resistant wheat performs well. The village celebrates with a modest feast. Roasted goat, fresh bread, beer brewed from barley. It's simple fare, but after years of scarcity, it tastes like luxury. Kuwana makes a speech. She's older now, you notice. Moving slower, but still sharp. We survived another year, she says. The empires fell, the cities burned, the trade routes ended, and we're still here. Remember that. Remember that we endure. You're sitting with the children, Zilipuri and Tarawani, who you've come to think of as yours, even though you're not their father. They're happy tonight, fed, safe, part of a community. They don't remember the fear anymore, don't remember Hattusa. They're village children now, completely and fully. After the feast, the village storyteller tells tales. He's old, probably 80, and he's been telling these stories since before you were born. They're not written. The village has no written language, no tablets, no scribes. Just oral tradition, stories passed down through generations. He tells about the time of cities, when great kings ruled from palaces, about bronze weapons that shone like the sun, about ships crossing seas and caravans crossing deserts, about the collapse when the cities burned and the people scattered. It's already becoming myth. The storyteller wasn't there. He's embellishing, dramatizing, making it legendary. In his version, the cities fall because gods were angered. Heroes fight impossible battles. The causes are divine anger, not systematic failure. You could correct him. You lived it. You know the real story. Drought, trade collapse, bronze scarcity, cascading failures. But you stay silent. Because his version is easier to remember, easier to tell, easier to pass down to children who'll tell it to their children. Truth gets simplified in oral tradition. The complex becomes simple. The systemic becomes personal. The historical becomes mythical. Maybe that's okay. Maybe the point isn't accuracy, but meaning. The story teaches the lesson. Great civilizations fall. Power is temporary. Humility is survival. That night, you lie in your sleeping space, listening to the village sounds. Someone's baby crying, a dog barking, the wind through mountain passes. You're 18 now. You've survived the end of an age. You have scars, physical, emotional, psychological, but you're alive. Your father taught you to work bronze, to read, to calculate. Skills that meant everything in the old world and nothing in the new one. But you learned new skills, farming, stonework, survival, and maybe the most important, how to let go, how to accept loss, how to keep living after everything ends. 2 years pass in the rhythm of seasons. Plant, harvest, winter, repeat. You're 20 now, fully adult by the village's reckoning. Kuwana assigns you your own plot on the terraces. You're no longer a refugee, no longer a temporary worker. You're a villager. The change is subtle but profound. You have responsibility now. You have land, not ownership as Hittite law would define it, but use rights, which is what matters. You're part of the village council meetings, though you rarely speak. You're trusted. Zilipuri is 12. He works his own terrace now, adjacent to yours. He's strong for his age, good with plants. He'll make a better farmer than you. He has the instinct for it, the patience. Tarawani, 10, works with the women, learning weaving and food preservation. Both children are thriving. You think about your original family less now. The grief has dulled to a permanent ache, like an old injury that hurts in certain weather. You've accepted you'll never know their fate, accepted that wondering doesn't help. Does anyone want to learn? Kipia asks one evening. My grandfather says knowledge should be shared. The villagers shrug. What use is writing? You can't eat it, can't plant it. The old scribe's knowledge is interesting, but irrelevant to survival. You stay after the others leave. I used to read, you tell Kipia. Hittite cuneiform, business accounts mostly, contracts. Her eyes light up. Show me. You scratch what you remember in the dirt. You've forgotten most of it. The signs come slowly, incorrectly. You fumble with symbols that used to be second nature. The mind forgets what it doesn't use, the old scribe says gently. He's not disappointed, just stating fact. You realize something sad. In another generation, maybe two, literacy will be completely gone from this region. The bronze workers, the scribes, the palace administrators, all that knowledge dying with them. The Dark Age will be truly dark, an age without writing, without records, without history. But life will continue, wheat will grow, children will be born. The important things will persist. Kipia stays. Her grandfather dies within a month, as expected. The village buries him in the mountain cemetery. Kipia grieves quietly, then adapts. She's a survivor, like you, like everyone who made it this far. You spend time together, not romantic at first, just two people who remember the before, who can talk about cities and writing and bronze without explaining everything, who share a past that's already becoming incomprehensible to others. She tells you about Carchemish, how it fell not to invasion but to starvation, how the granaries emptied, how the king opened the gates and told everyone to leave, save themselves, how she and her grandfather walked north for months, surviving because he could trade his literacy for food until literacy stopped being valuable. "Do you miss it?" she asks one evening. You're sitting above the village watching sunset. The old world? Sometimes, you admit. The comfort, the certainty, the feeling that you were part of something larger. But it was fragile. We just didn't know it. This, you gesture at the village below. This is real. This endures. She's quiet for a while. Then, I want to keep the writing alive, even if it's just us, even if it dies with us, for a while longer. You understand. Not because writing is useful, but because it's human. Because remembering matters. Because letting go doesn't mean forgetting everything. You start meeting regularly. She teaches you what her grandfather taught her. You relearn symbols you've forgotten. You teach her what you knew about numbers, calculations, records. It's an exchange of fragmentary knowledge. Two people pooling their degraded memories. Winter comes again. Kipia lives with the weavers, learning their craft. You see her at communal dinners, at the well, in the fields. The village watches, notes, speculates. You're both of age, both unattached, both survivors. You watch the boy you saved dance with his bride, and you feel something unexpected. Pride, joy, hope. He's building a life here, a simple life, but a real one. That night, you walk with Kipia under stars. We should marry, you say. No poetry, no romance, just practical assessment. We work well together. We understand each other. We're both alone. She laughs. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. It's the only proposal you've heard. True, she considers. Yes, we should marry, for all those practical reasons. And maybe, she pauses, maybe because I care about you, and maybe you care about me. You do. When did that happen? Somewhere between loss and survival, between refugee and villager, between the end of one world and the beginning of another. You marry in early summer. The whole village celebrates, any excuse for a feast. You and Kipia speak vows before Kuana, who's become the village's spiritual authority as well as practical leader. The ceremony mixes elements from different traditions, Hittite, Syrian, local mountain customs. Everything is syncretized now, blended, adapted. The village builds you a house, small stone walls, thatch roof, one room. It's yours. You own nothing and everything, no legal deed, but everyone acknowledges it's your home. Kipia moves in her few possessions. You bring your bronze spearhead, the only thing you kept from before. You hang it on the wall. It looks strange there, gleaming bronze in a rough peasant house. Kipia touches it gently. Your father's work? Yes. It's beautiful. Useless, but beautiful. She's right. The village has no use for weapons. The old wars are over. The new world has different conflicts. Drought, crop failure, disease. You can't fight those with spears, but you keep it anyway. Memory made metal. Your first year of marriage is work. You farm your terraces. Kipia weaves. You share meals, share labor, share a bed. It's partnership more than romance, but romance grows from partnership. You learn her rhythms, she learns yours. No children come that first year. You're both grateful. Children mean more mouths to feed. The village can support some growth, but not too much. Every pregnancy is calculated. Every child a question of resources. Autumn brings harvest again, good yield. The village is prospering in its limited way. Kuwana is dying now. Everyone can see it. She's 90, maybe older. She's outlived 2 empires and will die in the simple world she always preferred. She calls you to her one afternoon. Her house is dark, close, smelling of herbs and sickness. You were a city boy, she says. Her voice is weak. You remember what cities were. Yes. Tell the next generation. Tell them cities existed. Tell them they fell. Tell them to be glad for simplicity. They won't believe me. It'll sound like myth. Good. Let it be myth. Myths teach lessons. History just records mistakes. She dies 3 days later. The village grieves genuinely. She held them together, led them through the worst times, kept them independent when empires fell. They elect a new leader, Piha, the farmer who taught you stonework. He's capable, sensible, humble. The village will continue. 5 years pass. You're 25. Kipia is 24. The village life has become your life. You can hardly remember being anything but a farmer. Your hands are permanently calloused. Your back knows the ache of bent labor. You measure time by seasons, by plantings, by harvests. Kipia gives birth in your 5th year of marriage, a daughter. You name her Tawa after the sun. She's small but healthy, loud, demanding, perfect. Fatherhood changes you in ways you didn't expect. You understand now why your parents did what they did, why they gave you their rations, why they sent you away. Love makes people do impossible things. You teach Tawa everything, how to walk, talk, laugh. As she grows, you'll teach her farming, survival, practical knowledge. And you'll teach her something else, that once there were cities, that people built great things, that civilizations fall, that humble endurance matters more than proud complexity. Kipia teaches her too, shows her the scratched symbols, the degraded writing. Tawa won't really understand it, won't need it, but she'll know it existed, know that knowledge comes in forms beyond oral tradition. The village continues its steady existence, good harvests and bad, healthy years and sick ones, children born, elders dying. The cycle that predates empires and will continue after all empires are forgotten. Refugees still come occasionally, but they're different now. Not fleeing collapse, collapse is old news. Fleeing local conflicts, drought in specific regions. Normal reasons for migration, not civilizational catastrophe. But that's for future generations. For you, there's just this: the village, the seasons, your daughter, your wife, the work. The simple and the real and the enduring. You sit on your terrace one sunset, watching Kawa play in the dirt. She's 3 years old, healthy, happy, oblivious to everything that came before she existed. You hold Kipia's hand. You've survived. Your daughter lives in a world you helped make possible. The Bronze Age is gone. The Hittite Empire is dust. Your parents are dead. Your old life is ash. But you're here. Tawa is here. The wheat grows, the sun sets, life continues. Years blend together now. Tower grows. She's 7, learning to help with simple tasks. She's clever, curious, asks endless questions. Why does wheat grow? Where does rain come from? Why are the mountains there? You answer what you can. Make up the rest. You're not a scholar, never were really. Just a merchant's son who learns some cuneiform. But to Tower, you know everything. You tell her stories at night. Not just village tales. You tell her about Hattusa, about your family, about the collapse. She listens wide-eyed, not quite believing. Cities with 40,000 people, palaces, bronze weapons. It sounds like fantasy to her. Is it real? She asks one night. Yes, you say. It was real. Why did it end? How do you explain systemic collapse to a 7-year-old? The world got too complicated, you finally say. People depended on too many things they couldn't control. When those things failed, everything failed together. Will it happen again? Probably, eventually. People forget. They build too big, get too confident, depend on too much. Then it crashes. Will it happen to us? You look around your small house, at your terrace outside, at the simple village. No, you say. We're too small to collapse, too simple to fail. She seems satisfied with that. You're not sure you are. But it's the truth as you understand it. Piha, the village leader, asks you to join the council officially. You're one of the elders now, only 30, but in this community, that's experienced. You accept. The responsibility is light, mostly mediating disputes, planning work rotations, managing common resources. You're good at it. Your literacy, even degraded, gives you advantages. You can scratch numbers in clay, keep basic records. The village doesn't need complex administration, but simple accounting helps. Who contributed what to common stores? Who owes work to whom? Basic stuff. Other villages in the region send representatives occasionally. There's a network forming. Not a kingdom, nothing formal. Just neighboring communities that trade, intermarry, share information. Rudimentary cooperation without hierarchy. You watch it develop with interest. This might be how complexity returns, not through conquest or royal decree, but through voluntary cooperation. Villages linking, then networks of villages, then what? Eventually, small states again? Eventually, empires? Not in your lifetime, maybe not in Tawa's, but eventually. The cycle continues. You're walking with Kipia one evening when she stops suddenly, touches your arm. Look, she whispers. On the hillside above, a young deer. It watches you with liquid eyes, alert but not frightened. For a moment, there's perfect stillness. Human, animal, landscape. Nothing but the present moment. Then it bounds away, disappearing into the forest. Beautiful, Kipia says. You agree. You're thinking about something else too. In the old world, you rarely saw wildlife. Cities pushed it away. Too many people, too much noise, too much disruption. But now the land is healing. The forests are growing back, animals returning, the earth recovering from centuries of intensive use. Maybe the collapse was necessary, not for humans, for the world. A reset, a chance for restoration. You don't say this to Kipia. It's too abstract, too philosophical, and it doesn't make the suffering worth it. But you think it anyway. A significant trader arrives when you're 32. He's from the coast, from one of the new settlements being built on the ruins of old cities. He brings iron tools, better quality than before. Alphabet writing on his cargo labels. Simple, efficient, nothing like cuneiform. The world is changing again, he tells the village council. The coastal cities are growing, they're trading with each other, building ships. The Phoenicians, they call themselves now, using alphabets everyone can learn, working iron instead of bronze. You examine the iron knife he shows you. It's good. Not as good as your father's bronze, but good enough. And more importantly, practical. Iron ore is common, doesn't require distant trade in tin. Is it like before, you ask? Like the Bronze Age? The trader laughs. No, simpler, smaller, smarter maybe. People learned. No one's building huge empires. No one wants to depend on trade routes they can't protect. It's more local. That night, you and Kipia discuss it. Tawa is 9 now, old enough to understand. Should we go? Kipia asks. To the coast? See the new cities? You consider it. Part of you is curious, wants to see what's being built from the ashes. But another part, the larger part, is content. You have a life here, a good life, simple but good. No, you finally say. This is home now. Let the young people rebuild cities. We've already survived one collapse. That's enough for one lifetime. Tawa asks, will those cities fall too? Probably, you tell her honestly. Everything does eventually. But that's not a reason not to build, just a reason to stay humble, to remember that nothing lasts forever. She thinks about that. Then, will our village last? Longer than the cities, you say. We're too small to matter, too simple to fail. We'll be here when the next empire falls. It's true, or true enough. The village has endured for generations already. Will endure for more. Complexity crashes, simplicity persists. The trader leaves the next morning, takes the mountain route east. You watch him go, carrying news of the coast to other highland villages, connecting the world again, thread by thread. But you stay, tend your terraces, watch Tawa grow. Live the life you built from the ruins of the life you lost. You're at peace with it. Most days. Some days you remember your father's workshop, the smell of molten bronze, the weight of a perfect spearhead. Some days you miss reading, miss being part of something larger than a village. But those days are rare. Mostly, you're content. You survived. You adapted. You built something new from the fragments of something old. That's enough. That's more than enough. Tawa is 13 when she asks to learn more than basic survival. She wants to understand the scratched symbols, the degraded writing you and Kipia keep alive. She's smart enough, disciplined enough. So you teach her. It's harder than you expected. You've forgotten more than you remember. The cuneiform you once read fluently is mostly lost. What you teach Tawa is a pigeon, simplified symbols, basic concepts, more drawing than writing. But it's something, a thread connecting past to future, thinner than spider silk, but unbroken. Kipia teaches her weaving, complex patterns, dye techniques, the practical crafts that make village life possible. Tawa is good at it, better than you expected. She has her mother's patience, her mother's eye for detail. One evening, Tawa asks, "Why did you keep the spearhead? Father's work, I mean. You've never explained it fully." "Memory," you finally say. "It's a reminder of what was, of who I was, of skills that mattered once." Does it make you sad? Sometimes. Mostly it makes me thoughtful about how quickly things change, how much we lose, how much we keep. She touches the bronze, still gleaming after 15 years. "Will you teach me bronze work?" There's no tin, no copper, no need for bronze. But the knowledge, so it doesn't die completely. You're surprised by this, impressed. She understands something important, that preserving knowledge isn't always about utility. Sometimes it's about continuity. about refusing to let the thread break completely. So you teach her what you remember, the ratios, 9 parts copper to 1 part tin, the temperatures needed, the casting techniques, the finishing methods, all theoretical now, with no materials to practice. But she learns it, commits it to memory. Why? Kipia asks later. Why teach her dead knowledge? Because maybe it's not dead. Maybe centuries from now, someone will rediscover it. And if there's even a trace of memory, even oral tradition, it'll be easier, faster. They won't have to start from nothing. Kipia smiles. You're thinking very long term. I survived the end of an age. You do, you think long term. You realize how quickly things can be lost, how important it is to remember. That year, a plague comes through the valley. Not civilization ending, just normal disease, the kind that always existed. But it kills. The village loses 15 people, including Piha. The village elects you as the new leader. You're 35. You accept because someone has to. Because you have experience, wisdom, patience. Because you remember how things fall apart and maybe can help keep things together. It's responsibility you never wanted. But life rarely gives you what you want. It gives you what you can handle, and you handle it. As village leader, you face the eternal challenges. Water management, crop rotation, mediating disputes, planning for winter. The work is endless, but meaningful. You're good at it because you understand fragility, having seen it break. You're cautious where others might be bold. You build reserves where others might celebrate abundance. You plan for failure where others assume success. Your experience of collapse makes you conservative, careful, wise. The village prospers under your leadership. Not spectacularly, prosperity is always modest here, but steadily. Good harvests more years than bad. The terraces well maintained, the cisterns full, the community cohesive. Tawa is 17 when she decides to marry. A young man from a neighboring village. His name is Ziti, the same name as the physician who tried to save your sister decades ago. The coincidence makes you thoughtful. Do you approve? Tawa asks. Of the marriage? Yes. He's a good man, hard worker, kind. You could do much worse. But? No but. I'm happy for you. She knows you well enough to see through it. You're thinking about the past. Always, you admit. When you get old, the past grows larger, more real than the present sometimes. Tell me more about it, about Hattusa, about your family. So you do. You tell her things you haven't said in years, about your father's hands scarred from bronze burns, about your mother's worry, about your sister's fever, about the hunger, the violence, the slow collapse of everything familiar. You survived, she says when you finish. The years after Tawa's marriage pass quickly, too quickly. You're 45 now, an elder in truth, not just title. Your back aches from decades of farm work. Your hands are gnarled. Your hair is completely white. But you're alive, still functional, still leading. Tawa has 2 children, your grandchildren, a boy and a girl. They call you grandfather in the mountain dialect, not knowing any other language. They've never heard of Hittites, never seen bronze, never imagined cities. To them, you're just grandfather, a kind old man who tells strange stories about impossible places. They humor you the way children humor elderly relatives. They don't really believe. How could they? You don't mind. Their disbelief is success. It means the world is stable enough that collapse seems impossible. Means they've never known hunger, violence, fear. Means you've done your job as leader, as protector, as builder of peace. Kipia is aging too. She's 44, Still weaving, but slower now. Her hands hurt, the price of decades of detailed work. You sit together in the evenings, saying little, needing to say little. 40 years of shared survival creates understanding beyond words. A trader brings news that stops you. The coastal Phoenicians have circumnavigated Africa. Impossible journey, impossible achievement. They're rebuilding long-distance trade, establishing colonies, creating new networks. The world is getting complex again, you tell the village council. Eventually, it'll reach us. Trade, demands, involvement in larger systems. What should we do? They ask. Stay simple as long as possible. Trade for necessities, iron tools, salt. But don't become dependent. Don't let our survival depend on distant events. That's what killed the Bronze Age. They listen. You're respected. Your age, your experience, your memory of collapse gives you authority. The village follows your cautious wisdom, but you know it's temporary. Eventually, the next cycle of complexity will encompass even remote mountain villages. Eventually, new empires will form. Eventually, the same mistakes will be made. Not in your lifetime, not in Tawa's, maybe not in your grandchildren's, but eventually. History doesn't end, it cycles. You've seen one complete cycle: rise, peak, collapse, dark age, slow recovery. The pattern that repeats across millennia. You write this down, not in cuneiform, you've forgotten too much. In the simplified script you developed with Kipia and taught to Tawa. Basic symbols for basic concepts. What are you writing? Tawa asks one day. A warning for future generations, about complexity and fragility, about how civilizations fall. Anyone read it? Probably not, but I have to try. She understands. She helps you. Together, you create a simple text. It won't survive centuries. Clay tablets require libraries, preservation, institutional support. But maybe it'll last a few generations. Maybe someone will copy it, pass it on, keep the memory alive a little longer. It's all you can do. Plant seeds of memory and hope they grow. You're 50 when illness comes. Not plague, not injury, just age. Your body's slowly failing, systems shutting down. The physician, a young woman who learned from her grandmother, says it gently. You have months, maybe a year. Your body is simply worn out. You accept it with more calm than you expected. You've lived 48 years since leaving Hattusa. You've survived the impossible, built a new life, raised a daughter, led a community, seen grandchildren. That's more than most people get, more than you had any right to expect during the collapse. Kipia takes it harder. Not yet, she says. Not now. When then? You ask gently. I'm 50. That's a good life. A long life. Not long enough. Nothing is ever long enough. But you're grateful for what you had. You spend your final months teaching, telling stories, making sure everything you remember is passed on. Tawa writes it down. The degraded cuneiform, the bronze formulas, the history of collapse, everything. Why does this matter? She asks once. It's all gone. The Bronze Age, the Hittites, the Old World. Why preserve it? Because forgetting completely is a kind of death. Remembering, even imperfectly, is a kind of life. And because maybe someone, someday, will need to know that civilizations fall, that complexity has costs, that simple endurance matters more than grand achievement. Your grandchildren come daily. They're old enough now to understand you're dying. They sit quietly, listening to stories they still don't quite believe. But they'll remember, and they'll tell their children, and the thread will continue. When I'm gone, you tell Tawa, Bury this with me. Let it return to earth. Let it be forgotten with me. No, she says firmly. It should be kept, remembered, passed down. You start to argue, then stop. She's right. Memory matters. Even when painful, even when obsolete, memory matters. The sun sets in fire colors, orange, red, purple. Spectacular and indifferent. It's set like this when Hattusa was great. Will set like this when these mountains are worn to plains. You're at peace. You survived. You witnessed. You remembered. You passed it on. That's enough. That's everything. You die 3 months later, quietly in your sleep, with Kipya beside you. You're 50 years and 4 months old. You've outlived your entire original family. You've outlived the Hittite Empire. You've outlived the Bronze Age itself. The village mourns. You led them well. They respected you. Some loved you. They bury you in the mountain cemetery next to Kuwana, near the old scribe, among all the others who found refuge here. Tawa keeps the bronze spearhead, hangs it in her house. Her children grow up seeing it, hearing stories about their grandfather who came from a fallen empire, who survived the end of an age, who built a new life from ruins. The stories change in the telling, become simpler, more dramatic, less accurate. Details blur, chronology scrambles. Within 2 generations, you become a figure of legend rather than memory. The man who escaped the burning cities, who walked through the collapse, who brought the ancient knowledge to the mountains. It's not quite true, but it's not quite false either. Memory and myth blend. That's how oral tradition works. That's how history becomes story. The bronze spearhead endures. 30 years after your death, it's still gleaming, a mystery to the village children. An artifact from the age of bronze, the age of cities, the age before. Tawa becomes village leader after you. She rules with your caution, your wisdom, your understanding of fragility. The village continues to prosper modestly, continues to remain simple, continues to endure. Your warning, the clay tablet about complexity and collapse, survives 3 generations. Tawa's daughter keeps it. Her daughter keeps it. Then it breaks accidentally, and the fragments are discarded. The words are lost. But the lesson persists in oral tradition, in village culture, in the cautious way they approach growth and change. Ideas outlive their first articulation. Wisdom persists beyond specific words. You planted seeds that grew in ways you never imagined, bore fruit you never tasted. Your grandchildren have children. They have children. The generations multiply. Within a century, dozens of people carry your blood, your lessons, fragments of your memory. The Bronze Age becomes myth, then legend, then vague tradition, then forgotten. But the village endures. 200 years after your death, a scholar arrives in the valley. He's from one of the new city-states forming on the coast. He's collecting stories, trying to piece together what happened during the Dark Age, during the collapse. The village elders, your great-great-great-grandchildren, though they don't know they're related to you, tell him stories about the time of cities, about the great collapse, about the refugee who came from Hattusa and became their leader. The scholar writes it down, not in cuneiform, that's long forgotten, in alphabetic script, the new system that's spreading across the Mediterranean. Simpler, easier, more democratic. Writing that anyone can learn, not just specialized scribes. He examines the bronze spearhead, still preserved in the village chief's house. He can read the maker's mark, just barely. Hittite style, pre-collapse. He offers to buy it. The village refuses. It's their sacred object now, their connection to the past. The scholar writes in his chronicle, in the mountain villages, memories of the Hittite Empire persist in story form. The people speak of a great collapse, when the cities burned and the trade routes ended. They maintain that their village survived by staying simple, by refusing complexity. Whether this is historical fact or justifying myth, the lesson has shaped their culture profoundly. He moves on. His chronicle survives. Eventually, it's copied, preserved in the libraries of the new cities. Your story, distorted, simplified, mythologized, becomes part of the historical record. But the real record is the village itself. Still there, still farming the terraces, still simple, still enduring. 300 years after your death, the new empires are rising. Assyria resurgent, Greece emerging, Phoenicia trading. The world is complex again. Cities are large again. Writing is common again. Iron has replaced bronze. The cycle is continuing, up again, heading toward another peak, which will inevitably lead to another crash. But the village remains. It survived the Bronze Age. It survived the Dark Age. It will survive whatever comes next. Your blood is in dozens of the villages now. Your caution is in their culture. Your memory is in their stories. You're forgotten as an individual, but preserved as influence. 500 years after your death, archaeologists will excavate the ruins of Hattusa. They'll find your father's workshop. They'll find clay tablets with his name. They'll have no idea he had a son who escaped, who survived, who built a new life in the mountains. They'll write about the collapse with academic detachment. They'll debate causes, drought, invasion, systems failure. They'll never know what it felt like to live through it, to lose everything, to rebuild from nothing. But you knew, you lived it, you witnessed, you remembered. And through the village, through your descendants, through the culture you helped shape, your witness persists. Not the details, those are gone, but the essential truth. Civilizations fall, complexity is fragile, simplicity endures. Humble survival matters more than grand achievement. That truth survives. That truth matters. 1,000 years after your death, the village is still there. It's changed, of course. Different houses, different crops, different gods. But it's recognizably the same place. Same terraces, same mountain, same simplicity. Your grave marker is long gone. Weather, time, replacement. No physical evidence of your existence remains. The bronze spearhead was finally lost in a fire 3 centuries back. Your name is forgotten. Your stories are unrecognizable, blended with hundreds of other tales. But the village's culture, its caution about complexity, its emphasis on self-sufficiency, its suspicion of distant dependencies, that remains. Your village still exists. It survived Bronze Age, Iron Age, Classical Age, into whatever comes next. It will probably survive the fall of Rome too. Simple things endure. 3,000 years after your death, the village is finally gone. Not destroyed, just gradually abandoned as people move to cities, as agriculture mechanizes, as the old ways stop making sense. But the terraces remain. Archaeologists find them, document them, wonder about the people who built them. They find pottery fragments, stone tools, evidence of continuous occupations spanning thousands of years. They write papers about resilient mountain communities, about how simple societies survived when complex ones collapsed, about sustainability and local adaptation. They don't know about you, can't know. You left no grand monuments, no written records that survived, no inscriptions. But you built something that lasted 3,000 years. A community, a culture, a way of life. That's more than most kings achieve, more than most empires. You were a refugee who became a farmer, who became a leader, who became a memory, who became forgotten. The lessons persist, even when specific memories die, even when individuals are forgotten, even when civilizations fall and rise and fall again. The Bronze Age collapse taught humanity something important. It taught that complexity has costs, that dependencies create fragility, that interconnected systems can fail catastrophically, that grand civilizations can end. You learned it personally, viscerally, through loss and hunger and survival. You couldn't articulate it academically, but you understood it in your bones. And you taught it, to Tawa, to the village, not as theory but as practice. Stay simple, stay self-sufficient. Don't depend on what you can't control. Humble endurance beats grand achievement. That wisdom spread, through oral tradition, through culture, through the experience of countless other refugees who survived the collapse and built new communities on the same principles. The Dark Age wasn't completely dark. It was a period of reset, of healing, of learning. The earth recovered, the forests grew back. Human populations stabilized at sustainable levels. Complexity simplified to forms that could actually endure. And when civilization rebuilt, when the classical world emerged from the ruins of the Bronze Age, it was different. Smaller city-states instead of vast empires, iron instead of bronze, alphabets instead of cuneiform. Simpler, more robust, more sustainable, at least for a while. Eventually, the lessons were forgotten. Rome became as complex and fragile as the Bronze Age kingdoms. It collapsed too. Medieval Dark Age, Renaissance, Enlightenment, Industrial Revolution. Each cycle building higher, becoming more complex, creating new fragilities. The pattern repeats. It always does. Humans forget, get confident, build too big, depend too much, crash. But each time there are survivors, people like you, refugees who endure, who rebuild, who pass on lessons that persist even when they're forgotten. You are one of countless individuals who survived the Bronze Age collapse, who carried knowledge through the Dark Age, who built the foundation for what came next. Your specific story is lost, but you were real, you existed, you mattered. Somewhere in the mountains, terraces you helped build are still visible. Archaeologists catalogue them, tourists photograph them. No one knows you built them, but they exist. Evidence of your life, of your work, of your survival. Somewhere in the world, people carry your genes. Distant descendants who have no idea they're related to a Hittite refugee who survived the collapse. But your blood persists. Somewhere in human culture, echoes of your wisdom remain. The understanding that civilizations fall, that complexity is fragile, that simple endurance matters. These truths resurface every time an empire crashes. You were a merchant's son who learned to work bronze, who watched an empire fall, who became a refugee, who survived, who adapted, who built a new life, who led, who taught, who endured. You were forgotten, but you mattered. This story ends. Your story ended 51 years after you left Hattusa. Ended in a mountain village, in bed, with your wife beside you. Quiet ending, peaceful ending. The kind of death you never thought you'd get when you were fleeing the collapse. But the larger story continues. Life continues. The cycle continues. History continues. The Bronze Age is gone, long gone. 3,000 years in the past, studied by scholars, source of legends, foundation of civilization. And you were there, you lived it, you witnessed its end, you survived its fall. You helped build what came after. That's your legacy. Not monuments or written records or fame, just survival, just endurance, just the continuation of life through catastrophe. It's enough. It's everything. So there you have it, the story of how the Bronze Age ended, told through one life. One refugee who survived when empires fell. The cities are dust now. the kings forgotten, the bronze weapons corroded. But the lessons persist. Complexity is fragile, simplicity endures. Humble survival matters more than grand achievement. Drop a comment about what surprised you most. Subscribe if you want more forgotten history. And remember, civilizations fall. They always have. They always will. But people endure. We adapt. We survive. We rebuild. Sleep well, knowing that even when everything falls apart, humans find a way through. Good night.